Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. In this episode, we'll hear from someone in Northern Virginia who has been watching a strange building at night, and has some very interesting things to say. Then we'll go to the woods in western Pennsylvania to talk to someone who saw something very strange while camping. Then, we'll hear from a new park ranger, who made a shocking discovery and may not be ready for the job. I live in the Northern Virginia suburbs. I just crossed the line into Fairfax County from the west. For those who don't know, there have been suburbs in Northern Virginia for as long as I can remember. There were always new neighborhoods being built, especially in the Ashburn area. Since I was a kid, it's not that old. But now there are too many people there. Because there are so many government jobs and tech jobs in this area, it's likely that your neighbors either work for the government or for a contractor who works for the government, or they work in real estate. Where I live, there are different kinds of neighborhoods and buildings. Across the street from me is a group of buildings surrounded by a big barbed wire fence. There is a field between my street and the building, but I can still see it. The back of my house, where my room's window is, faces this building. From the outside, there are no signs. There are no signs or other things that say who the company is, and there are security guards at the entrance gate all the time. This isn't a strange thing. There are a lot of places like this, and nobody really knows what happens there. So, I'm sending you my experience because, as I said, I've lived here my whole life and have seen things happen at this building, which I'm going to tell you about. I'm now in college. I'm a senior at George Mason University and just started my last year there. I commute to school to save money on rent and because I'm bored. I moved there from a community college in Virginia during my junior year. If you have an associate's degree from a community college, you can go to any school, even the hard-to-get-into ones like the University of Virginia. So, about 5 years ago, I first became interested in this building. When I was a kid, I saw it being built, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought it was just a normal building. But as I got older, I became interested in it for some reason. I was curious about what was happening in there. Why were they there to protect them? 24/7. Why weren't there any signs on the building's doors? Late at night, sometimes around 2 or 3 a.m., I would often see cars pull up. What are they doing that late at night? The cars' windows were always dark, so I could never tell who was driving. They never stayed there for more than 20 minutes at a time. I thought that they were probably dropping something off or picking something up based on what I saw. Strangely, these drop-offs and pickups always happened at night, never during the day. Well, one night I was up late studying, and I saw lights inside the building go off and flash like they do when a fire alarm goes off. When I opened the window in my room, I didn't hear anything. I couldn't hear much because it was so far away. But a few years ago, for my birthday, I got a pair of Celestron binoculars. I used my binoculars to look over there, and I could see that the lights had stopped blinking. Then this delivery truck showed up about 10 minutes later. A big white cargo van pulled up to the side of the building. 2 men got out of the delivery truck and went into the building. About 5 minutes later, they opened the back doors of the van and put what looked like body bags in the back. I saw them carrying 4 body bags to the car. Now, I'm really interested to find out what happened over there, because this looks very strange. Why would a bell ring? Then, not long after, they were seen carrying body bags out of that building. Was there some kind of break, and people died because of something they were holding back? Was it an experiment gone wrong that blew up? Was this a secret place where they used to question people? I really don't know. In the next few days, anything could happen. At night, there was a lot going on at that building. During the night, a lot of cars and vans came. This went on for 3 days, but then things went back to normal. Even in the local news, there was nothing about it. So I did some research online and found out that the building is owned by some company that doesn't have a website or any information about itself online. It led nowhere at all. Even if I'm awake at night, I still keep an eye on this building. But I haven't seen anything like what happened that night when they carried out those bags. When I told my friends about it, we all wondered what was going on in that building. We think it's a place where people are tested or questioned because no one goes there during the day. Donovan, thanks for telling my story. Hi Donovan, my name is Tim, and I've been camping in Western Pennsylvania all my life. I saw in one of your comments that you're from Pittsburgh. I'm from Washington, Pennsylvania. So, not too far. Western Pennsylvania has a few parks where I always go camping, like Ohio's Pile and Cook Forest. All of these parks have nice places to look at and lots of things to do. I like Ohio Pile a lot, and I do a lot of fly fishing there. This is the place where my story happens. This summer, only my wife and I went camping. This happened in June. Our kids were staying with their grandparents in central Pennsylvania during the summer for a week, so that my wife and I could go camping, which is what we love to do most. We usually go camping with a few other families when we have kids, but this time it was just us. I have a travel trailer with a bunkhouse that can sleep 8 people. We went to Ohio Pile State Park to camp. We got there on Saturday, set up our camp, and then went fishing in the Yak River. My wife and I both like to fly fish. So that's what we did all day, until it was time to make dinner and eat after my dinner. My wife wanted to go to the river on foot. It was about a mile away until you got to a place where there were some big rocks by the river. We just sat there and looked at the scenery. We sat on those rocks until it got dark, and then we took our flashlights and went back to our camp. My wife was walking ahead of me, and we were about halfway back to camp when she stopped and pointed her flashlight about 20 feet ahead of us at something on the trail. I stopped because I didn't know what she had seen, but when I shined my flashlight where she was pointing, I couldn't believe what I saw. About 20 feet in front of us was this big, long-haired creature. It was on 4 legs. We couldn't see its face because it was facing away from us, but it looked like it was eating something on the path. We've seen black bears before, so my first thought was that we'd just run into one. But this looked different, and the smell hit us all at once after a second. It smelled like a wet dog and urine. So bad. The smell was very strong. This thing was covered in black fur, but it wasn't a bear because it had back legs like a dog's and not like a bear's. It was also a lot bigger than any black bear I've ever seen, and it had a big hump on the back of its neck. When we hit it with a flashlight, it runs away after about half a second. I didn't see its face. Everything happened very quickly. It was eating a half-eaten raccoon that was on the trail. I'm not totally sure what this was, because it happened so quickly and took off as soon as we saw it. I never saw its face, but it sure felt like that dog-like creature you talk about on your channel. I'd love to know if anyone else in the Western PA region has seen this creature on the search and rescue team only a few times. I was very upset by what I found. I was sent to the crime scene where I found a body that had been cut up and left on the side of the road. Still, I was thankful for any experience that would help me grow as a wildlife officer, and I knew that this one would be great for training. The victim's head and body parts were spread out over several yards. Because of this, we couldn't figure out which animal did it. The bigger problem with this was the more we looked into it. We didn't know of any local wildlife being killed at that time. Most of the time, we could tell what the animal was by its teeth and bite marks, scratches, and claw marks. We tested this fur to see if it came from a real animal, but nothing matched in our many systems. No one could figure out what kind of animal had left the orange-looking mat of fur by the victim's head. The worst thing about it, it almost looked like the head and limbs had been ripped off the body, instead of being mauled or torn off with teeth or claws. Now tell me what kind of animal in the hell could do that? Once the police and medical examiner came and took the body and any other evidence, we could look around the area more. Since I was a newbie, I had to go with one of the more experienced guys, which I didn't mind. I wasn't sure if I would be able to forget seeing that body for a very long time. The boss told us to check the area up to a certain point. I didn't even know that the area was divided by letters, and that was before I could find out anything else. We got going. I saw that the ranger I was with made sure the gun was loaded and ready to go before we left. We drove around for a while, taking the truck through the woods until we got to a much denser part of the parkland that I had never seen before. The ranger just sat there with the engine running while we looked at the trees in front of us, which were too close together to drive through. I don't know why, but I could have sworn I saw fear in his eyes. He told me, "This is as far as I go. The truck can't get through, and we don't belong out there," he said. I had to ask him what he meant by that, of course. So I asked, "What do you mean?" "Land is privately owned, so rangers can't go there." He looked at me and told me in a very serious way that people can't go in there, not just rangers. I wanted to ask more questions, but his silence made me think that we were done talking, at least for now. Even though it seemed like a strange thing to say, I didn't give it much thought. No, not right now. Anyway, after checking out the area, we drove back to the ranger station because we hadn't seen anything suspicious or anything else. It didn't look like there were any deer, rabbits, or even birds around. Even though I was still new, they had always treated me like I was part of the team and were eager to help me learn the ropes. I had heard a lot of stories, and most of them were funny and about times when people did silly things they could laugh about later. But this was not the same. I didn't feel like they wanted me there. There were a lot of looks between them, as if they all knew something I didn't. I had no idea what was happening. I was still shaky from the horrible discovery and the fact that no one seemed to know what the hell kind of creature had done it. What a terrible thing. I screamed. So what's up with all the stuff that looks like a secret? We will not go into the woods? What do you think might be out there? Wendigo, Bigfoot? Don't say there's a hot spot for UFOs. Right? The room was quiet, and my boss was looking at me from his desk. I wasn't sure if I was going to get in trouble, but he unlocked his drawer and, over the next hour or so, pulled out a map and some case files. He and the others told me about different situations they'd dealt with over the years, and discoveries they'd made that didn't make it into the official system, or were closed with a fake explanation. When you look at the files and photos, it's not clear what category they were really in. A lot of the bodies were like the one I found, with the head and limbs torn away from the body. But even though there were bite marks on the body and fur and poop were found nearby, they couldn't figure out what kind of animal it was. Even though I grew up reading Goosebumps and watching Supernatural, I didn't believe in anything that couldn't be explained. The idea was silly. It must have been a type of hybrid predator, like a wolf and a cougar, that had given birth to young. Now, my boss has told me that the DNA The blood found at the scene didn't match the blood of any other animal except the one he told me about. He took a piece of paper out of the blood, and then he took the printout from the blood that was found today. It worked out. So the latest victim and the person in this older fowl were both hurt by the same thing. Maybe all the files, but that's when I saw the strange thing. The one animal, it shared something with humans. So I asked if a person did this, but that couldn't be the case. If they really thought a person did it, I asked why they were looking into it instead of calling the police. I mean, if there were so many clear cases, why not the FBI? But he told me it wasn't a person, and the DNA says for sure it wasn't a person. But maybe at some point it was. I can't really say how I felt or what I was thinking at the time. I did wonder if this was some kind of elaborate joke or initiation where someone would say gotcha. But it never happened, so the case was quickly closed. I think that the file ended up with the others in a locked drawer. We all had to go out in pairs for the next few weeks, especially when it was dark or we were going off the pass. We had to keep people out of the campgrounds and on the trail, so I still haven't seen a deer or even a rabbit. It looked like all of the birds were back. But there is definitely something out there. But for now, no one knows why. Thanks for coming to watch.